Preparation has led me to completing 2 full manuscripts.
This is my third NaNoWriMo hitting 50K.
While being completely undiagnosed ADHD, after years of never completing anything. You see, the trick is to actually know what kind of writing brain you have. That way you can outline according to that style.
Don't let your dreams be dreams.
Hello scribes, I'm Pika Lee, and I'm a writer and filmmaker who loves to teach you a little bit more about how to develop your writing process, and of course teaches you a little bit about the business of writing. Today we're taking outlining a step further. The most crucial step that I see every single writing brain fail at is starting right with the planning stage. Okay, so which type of writing brain are you? There is the planner brain, like me, who basically thrives with tons of structure, detailed outlines, chapter by chapter. That way, I never have to really think very hard and come up with a lot of new storylines or don't have to work on connecting scenes together, and everything is kind of pre-done for me. So if you feel like that's something that really jives with your style of writing, you just like to have everything kind of taken off your plate during the outlining stage, maybe you are a planner brain. Stick with me to the end because I'm actually going to give you a bit of a schedule to write on. So weekly we'll go through what you should be focusing on. It will be outlined for the 3 brain types that I've come across most often, and a link to a worksheet down below. For my discovery brains, I know you're out there. I see you in the comments. You don't really like structure. You don't really like to play by the rules. You're kind of edgy. You're kind of cool. I kind of wish I was you. The thing about being a discovery brain is that unlike a planner brain, you're in full discovery mode. You're basically allowing yourself to enjoy the process, to enjoy the adventure. Of course, that means that sometimes you might get a little bit stuck and you have a lot more revisions at the end. That is the con when you go into the sort of next stages of your manuscript. Revisions, the worst part for every brain. You might be this kind of brain if you kind of generally like to sketch out like a quick little summary of your story, maybe like 1 to 2 sentence type of thing, a log line if you will, of what you already are excited to write, the idea basically. Might want to sketch out your plot at least, which is not the fun story part, which I think that discovery brains really like to do. A lot more adventure work in the story part, which is dialogue, which is, maybe those transition scenes. I think that's where they really thrive. I could be wrong. Let me know down in the comments. The next brain would be the hybrid brain, which sometimes I like to think I toe the line on. You guys are cool because you mix a little bit of the planning with a little bit of the edginess of the discovery brain. I think I do overplan when I'm doing a really large project like a historical romance because there's a lot more research involved, so I did need more planning for it. But I do enjoy discovering a little bit of the theme and my characters as I write. I'm probably still more of a planner, but this is what the hybrid brain is like. They like some structure. They like to have a skeleton outlined. They like to know where they're going, but they like to have fun with playing with the scenes, connecting those dots, maybe coming up with those B stories, and so they don't plot as much in those areas.
Hello scribes, I just had to stop you really quickly so I could tell you that I've got a new Notion website for you, which has downloadable scripts in the Feature Script Vault and the TV Script Vault. And if you have a script you'd like to donate, feel free to email me. I'm hoping to add more free downloadable resources for you. You can also find a really quick link to my Etsy page where you can buy your own Writer Verified blue checkmark pin. And once I have free downloads for you, I'm going to drop them right here. Okay, back to the video.
Okay, so let's get into this whole outline scheduling thing that I was talking about. And I'm going to kind of break it down by the brain types. Really what you want to do is, in the very beginning, whatever we do, we want to start with the idea and the spark, right? For all 3 brains, pick a few different concepts, brainstorm whatever they'd like, maybe write a log line just to have 2 sentences down of what they're going to write. Even, heck, the discovery writer can write down 2 sentences of what their idea is And this is pretty common for all three brains to really do, just sort of write down what the general idea is going to be. You're probably going to want to brainstorm who your characters are. In your logline, you're going to want to mention your antagonist, your protagonist, and what it is they either go on the adventure for, or what they actually want and how it's sort of got an obstacle against it. That's your main 2 sentences. Well, at least describe something like that, even if it's very vague. So once you get that idea, generally the planner is going to be the first person who's going to write down all of the details that come to mind immediately when they get that first idea for the manuscript that they're going to write. Going into some of the characters, naming them, labeling them, things about your character, maybe what they truly want, maybe kind of getting to the plot, figuring out some side characters kind of comes really quickly and begins to get kind of solidified when you start developing your story just a little bit more. And I think within the week, you're also going to see discovery writers will also start kind of free writing maybe some scenes that come to mind immediately, the scene that maybe kicked off the idea for you, jotting that down, maybe putting together a mood board, maybe putting together some ideas of what the theme might look like. Those things, solidifying the genre, might be the first step for you if you're a discovery writer. You're not really fully forming anything quite yet. You're just sort of living in the experience of the excitement of the idea and jotting those ideas down. Hybrid is going to be like the planner and is also going to be taking some notes from the discovery writer. There will be some discovering who your character is by writing down a few key things about your character, maybe what they truly want, maybe kind of getting to the plot and writing down maybe a sentence about what the true plot will be or what you think it might look like. We'll also start kind of free writing maybe some scenes that come to mind immediately, maybe putting together a mood board. So going into the next week, we move into sort of structure. This is where we start outlining to see what the structure looks like. For the planner, this is where mapping out the 1 through 4 acts or 1 through 3 acts is going to come in clutch for you. You are definitely going to get a lot more specific maybe in the next week. From here, you're writing out just the major structural points and you're really taking into consideration what that journey looks like, the main A story journey, so that you can just get that laid out as quick as possible. Planners are going to really start to expand on those character arcs. They're going to really figure out what that fear or that wound is. Discovery writer might write maybe the beginning, middle, and end, is if they even do that. Sometimes they don't, but this is how I'm telling you to maybe make those little changes as a discovery writer. There will be some discovering who your character is by writing down a few key things about your character, maybe what they truly want. Now, my hybrid brains might do a little bit more vague mapping, so it might be way less plot points. It's just the very main ones. Seeing how that feels, seeing how it meshes with their genre, seeing how it meshes with some elements that they might want to throw in. They might start doing some comp research already, just trying to figure out like what is very similar to other books that are out there and what elements you can bring in into your story. It's going to be a little bit more relaxed. It's going to be still planning, but still being excited for some of the discovery. Maybe they solidify more about those character arcs from the sort of vague picture that they had the week before when they had the idea. So it just gets a little bit more refined. Okay, now we're in the idea expansion stage, right? This is the next week over. Usually we would be doing this in Preptober, so it would be 4 weeks. We're in the 3rd week of this, right? If we were doing this during Preptober, we'd go on to that idea expansion. So for the planners, they're going to be developing heavily now, right? So we're thinking through all those plot points and we're making it a little bit thicker. We're expanding on what and why and how things happen. We're expanding a little bit more on maybe that B story that's kind of weaving its way through. We're expanding a little bit more on the antagonist at this point, and we're maybe making some character arcs for those side characters. Maybe there's some other things that are happening with some secondary characters, and we need them to really push our character through, but they've got their own thing going on. So we are developing that a lot more. We're also maybe focusing a little bit more, instead of on the plot, or focusing on the inner storytelling for our character and weaving that through some of the scenes that we're setting up. This might also be the week where you're sort of going more chapter to chapter. Last manuscript, where I really fully planned everything out, I loved it. It helped me get from one chapter to the next, and it kept me on target and it kept me on track. Now, for my discovery writers, it's kind of tricky because the outlining kind of stops a little bit right here. I would go aim to flesh out more of who your character is. I would aim to flesh out more of who your antagonist is and any side characters, so that you have characters that are moving the story along because they've got enough backstory and they've got enough maybe core wounds to work with. That way you don't plan the scenes, but when the scenes do happen organically, you are able to take from the character's actual experience and backstory and move this plot along. So we already know that you've made the major plot points the last week. Now we're sort of just giving it some accelerant, right? We're trying to make sure that the fire stays lit for this whole story. So write down anything that might be really useful for that. Maybe do a little bit of world building here where you have something within their life and the elements that you can keep bringing into the story to reintroduce the obstacles for them. And that might be a really good way for you to keep adding and developing to your story without really killing the spark. For you as a discovery writer, when you go into the writing, make sure you're summarizing what you've written. I know it's so tedious and such a pain sometimes, even for me. But you're going to need to know that. That's going to be your outline, basically, as you go. As you write your chapters, as you write your scenes, then you can summarize it. That will become your actual outline. So that once you get to the very end of your manuscript, revision isn't so chaotic where you have to rewrite what you actually wrote, and read it all over again. So that's just a little tip. Hopefully that helps you, if you don't already do it, of course. Now, for my hybrid, I really do like to say that if you're going to go into the antagonist story, maybe write a few beats of what the backstory looked like for that person, or what their storyline looks like, so that you can make sure to weave it in really well. Maybe giving a little bit more detail and fleshing out and developing a little bit more of those points. You're maybe not doing chapter by chapter, but you're doing like the major chapters, and that is going to help a lot, of course, so that you can also feel the adventure when you get to it. Making sure that you have pretty strong reasons for your characters to be pushing along the scenes is going to be really great. Maybe, making sure to note down some things that can come back up from their past, some threads that can be pulled if you need to add them. Just some extra stuff that you might really want to include when you get down to the writing portion. Just basically expanding on maybe the world and the views of the world and maybe the side characters, so that you have enough fodder to keep that engine going. It's not going to be a ton of work at this point, but it will be a lot of maybe rereading your points and maybe making sure to expand on some of them so that you don't get too lost. However that works for you to keep you writing, make sure to note that. Make sure to have a running document of notes. As someone who is a heavy planner, I already, of course, have a huge document, and hybrids will also have a really great document going. Basically, all three of us brains should really have a running document of what this story looks like from a sort of bird's eye perspective. Now, getting into the fourth week, this is really the point where you're reading back through whatever you have to make sure that everything kind of flows. The whole idea makes sense. There's no holes in it. Your plot is unfolding as it should, with a good pacing, or to see little areas that you might need to expand upon. So this is really the time that you take to reflect on what you've written and what you've outlined, and make it as good as you can before you get to the day. Getting stuck is just a natural process for every writing brain. So it's never going to be 100% foolproof, but it is going to help you get through those rough patches a lot easier than if you, for your brain type, just didn't have a map. I also like to take a week where I'm prepping my writing schedule. I'm thinking about what that's going to look like for me with my job and with, having responsibilities. And I like to plan that in advance. But of course, as a planner, that makes sense. So if you're a hybrid, maybe you want to start planning your schedule and you want to have a week set out where you just do your scheduling. And then, of course, you cannot forget to set up your manuscript document, your notes, all in one place. I like to personally set up my Scrivener, creating a fake mock book cover so that I get really excited. I usually set it as my watch screen like I have here. I really do believe that you do need a hint of outlining, whether you're discovery brain all the way down to planning and hybrid. If you just figure out which writing brain you are, you'll have a really easy time finding the tools and the strategies that work for you when it comes to building your story and getting it developed to a point that works for you. And I hope that you subscribe if you really like to learn how to develop your writing brain. And I will see you guys on the next one. Bye, scribes!